In this video, I'd like to take a little hello world bash script and play with it and run it, try to run it in different places and change its permissions and change its location and see what happens to it along this journey. So here is the little bash script in question, sort of the shebang, the pound exclamation point, and then bin bash, and then just sort of echo hello world. So just a simple little script that just says hello. And it is, here it is here's my home directory. There it is in home. And let's look at it. It's permission, so ls minus sale. So I'm gonna get all of the information about this file. And we see that it is for the user read write, but not execute. So if we say the keyword bash and then the name of the file, hw.sh, that does indeed run. So if you use the command bash, then you can run this file. But if I do /, just sort of saying, look for this thing in the local directory, look for the thing hw.sh. So the // is saying, look at the current directory for this file. That is another possible way to run scripts if they're executable, but this one's not executable. So I'm getting a permission denied. So now I'm going to come along and change its permissions using the change mode command. And I can do this in various ways. I can work with numbers, or I can just add to the user execute. So I could do like a u plus x and add that to the file hw.sh. That we should add for the user executable. So let's do that to start off with, and do the now let's do the ls minus sale. And now we see that for the first set of permissions, we have rwx. And so that's here, rwx. And so that means for the user, it's read, write, and executable. So now if I do the // approach, it does indeed run. So that is another way to run if it is executable. Now I'm going to go all out and give it all sorts of permissions. I'm going to go for, there's a number way to approach, and a 7 in binary is 111. So that means read, write, and execute. And I'm giving the user and the group and others all of the possibilities, all of the permissions. Okay. And so let's do the ls minus sale and just see all those. It's rwx, rwx, rwx. Everybody can do everything. Okay. So, and then of course we can still run it these two ways with keyword bash. hw.sh, it runs, and the // hw.sh, of course, runs. Okay. Now, what I'd like to do is send it to a different place. So this is understood here, that this is in my home directory. So I can say bash in the file name, it's understood. And also // again, I'm saying, talking about this particular directory. If I were to move someplace else, sorry, CDE, I don't know, documents, and then try the command, it's saying, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. So it's running. So I'm going to go cd ... go back. Okay. So it didn't, that's not, even though I gave 777, I gave all the permissions, it's only understood in the directory. It's only understood if I'm in the directory where that script is. So now I'd like to look into moving it someplace else where sort of more people have access to this code. Not that I'm thrilled about Hello World, but just to sort of show the idea. So what I'm going to do is echo the environment variable $path, and that's going to show me here are the locations that the computer will look to see if there is, when you sort of try to run a command, these are the places it's going to look for that command to make sense. So I'm going to pick that, and there the parts of the paths are slash delimited, but this is a whole path. And then the colon is the delimiter between paths. So I'm going to choose, I think, the second path, user local bin, and I'm going to try to move my file, my hello world script there. So I'm going to say mv hello world.sh, and then I'm going to try to move it to a user local bin. And then we'll see, do we have permissions to this location or not? And then if we don't, then we can sort of elevate our privileges with sudo. So we can't move it. Permission denied for moving it. Now let's do a sudo move. So sudo should allow us to enter a password, raise our privileges, and then run it. And then what is my password? So what didn't, you didn't see it because it doesn't echo, but I did put in my password and it did work. And so now I should find that if I were to look in other locations, computer, user, local bin, and there's the file I just moved. So that is, according to path, one of the locations that should be sort of understood, that I can run this file now without, and it should no longer be here. I didn't copy it, I moved it. So here I am still in, and let me do ls minus sale homework.sh. So now I'm in the home directory and it's saying I don't find it. So it's not here in the home directory. I didn't copy it, I moved it. It is now in user local bin. And let's try to invoke it just by the file name. And it worked. Okay, now, so let's do this. Let's go there and see what happened to the permissions, because I've seen this occasionally not work. So sometimes I've seen the copying change the permission, and then it's, although it moved into a place where it's understood, it loses the permissions, and then you might have to reapply the positions. But so let's move to cd, change the directory to, where was it, user local bin. I can go sort of one by one, or I can just jump there. So I'm just jumping there. And let's do the ls minus sale to see permissions and such. And here is the hw.sh, and it still has the permissions, and it is still owned by my user, my group. So I've seen it. What did I do? Move it. Let me try. Do I still have access to this, or is it gone? Let me do. Do I have a save as? I just saved it. Let me go back. I'm going to try to open another terminal. Oh, I know what to do. Let me open another So here's my old terminal, here's my new terminal. This is, let me go home, tilde, cd tilde, ls minus sale. Let's see everything. There's my, now I have another version back in home. And, but let me try to do, I wanted to do let me do a move here. I want to rename it homework, no, hello world hw.sh and move it to hw2.sh. And what's the point of this? As this time I want to try to, and then let me give it full permissions, 777. And I'm going to try to copy instead of move and see if that is different than moving in terms of permissions and so on. So here's hw2.sh. It should now have all the properties, all the permissions, has the full permissions, and then instead of moving, I'm going to copy hw2.sh, and I'm going to move that to a user local bin. And the permission was denied, of course. I should have thought of that. So I need the sudo. And I'm in a new terminal, so password again. Okay, so it should have gone. Now there it is. Now let me go back to here and do an ls minus sale here. And the copied version, hw2.sh, has a different owner root than the moved one. So let's see, but it did keep for the user, but the user's root, execute permission. So let's see now back home. So I have, so it had here in home, it had 777, it had full privileges. But when we moved it, it kept the owner and kept the permissions. When we copied it, it changed the owner and changed some permissions. And let's see if hw2.sh, if that runs, and it did run. So they both were running, even though, and what can I say other than I've seen sometimes the permissions change so that it was no longer executable, and then it would not run. But this one did run, but let me one more try. I'm wondering if somewhere along the way I entered, but even if I've entered my password in sudo, it would still take the word sudo if it required elevated permissions, and it's not. So let's just go for one more just to solidify it. Here's a completely new terminal in home. Can I run hello world 2? Oh, I'm being silly. There is still a version of hello world 2 locally because I copied it. Let me, so this is probably the local version. Let me remove hello world 2.sh. So I copied it and that changed the owner and the permissions, but now I'm going to remove it from here. So it should no longer be here in home. I got rid of the hello world. So it's not here, the hello world 2, hello world 2.sh, and it is running. So it's not here locally. There's no such thing here in home. It got moved over to the user local bin, which is one of the places in path which should run. The ownership changed. We saw that to root. We saw the ownership change to root, but it still had executable for, well, for everybody. It had executable. Here was root, who can write it and read, write, and execute, and everybody else can read and execute. And that's what's required to run a script, to be able to, it needs to be interpreted, so it has to be read, and then it needs to be executable. So the permissions, the ownership of the permissions did indeed change, but they did not change so much that it made it not runnable. If they were to have changed, and I have seen this happen at least once, where they changed enough that they were no longer executable just by invoking the name, then you would have to sort of reapply the change mode to this file now in user local bin. But okay, this was the purpose of putting things in user local bin. I can be anywhere. Let me go into my documents. Remember, this did not work before because the file wasn't there. But now because I'm in a location specified by $path, the command can be understood from anywhere. And I do have both hw.sh and hw.sh, both, well, they have different owners. They both have enough permission to be run from anywhere. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you, this sort of permission game, moving a game, who can run it, how can they run it, do they need the word bash, do they need the word // can they just use the name of the file, where and when are things executable. That's what I wanted to show you. So thanks for your attention.